the ninth episode of Futurama, Hell is Other Robots. What we had here, an iconic episode, certainly for myself, as someone who was encouraged by my primary school to believe that the Catholic Church's teachings was the literally what happened in history, and I had no reason to doubt it. It's what my teachers were telling me. An episode like Hell is Other Robots seemed kind of blasphemous and really, really cheeky and kind of naughty, and making fun of like the religious as being kind of lame, but then showing the opposite as really still really horrible. I guess the old maxim, it's better to be boring than bad, seems to be on display a little bit playfully in Hell is Other Robots. But I see it as an adult now. I guess more agnostic, though, still some degree of fondness toward Catholicism. There's a feeling I get when watching Hell is Other Robots about the blankness, potential blankness and anhedonia of existence. Bender, well, we see those who accept religion as a kind of doing so they don't have to, the kind of cynical secular worldview of a Gen Xer, as the writers of Futurama are, the writers of The Simpsons as well. That their view of religion tends to be somewhat similar in that program, is this idea that
except for Homer the Heretic.
Well, we're getting to that. We're getting to it's ultimately in Hell is Other Robots, we're ultimately shown that Fry and Leela are kind of depicted as being in the wrong for doing what they did, and kind of making him sin again.
Yeah, they're guilty about getting him in the jam, definitely, because obviously Leela addresses that's a line in the song, which obviously the song we'll talk about.
Yeah.
So I do agree with that, though. I like what you said before, how the episode has a weird neutral position where it just plays out these scenarios, and it doesn't necessarily, like you mentioned, it shows the Benders, initially they're quite happy that he's sort of calmed down, become a bit more grounded.
Yeah.
Treats them better. But then they eventually are actually turned off by it, and I love the line where Leela, I think, says, "Oh, we were fine with your pornography, we were fine with your alcoholism, we were fine with your kleptomania," and then Zoidberg's like, "In fact, that's why we loved you."
Yeah.
I always found that really interesting. And then that they then encourage him in Atlantic City, and it's even portrayed by the show as this sort of positive thing, live a little. I find
initially.
No. Well,
they kind of tricks you into thinking, as a viewer, about oh yeah, Bender, he was a religious dork, wasn't he? What a square.
And then it turns it around, so it does the same with both scenarios. I always like that it shows a positive and negative to both. Let's be frank, fairly rudimentary and very concreted life choices,
Yeah.
It seems anybody with a degree of emotional intelligence will tell you that no extreme is any way to live your life, whether that be any sort of zealotry, right? Whether it be piousness or the opposite, a sort of dissidence. Yeah, so I like that the episode has a very balanced sort of take on that. And once again, all the other episodes in the season, at the same time as just being hilarious. Yeah. Utter hilarious. Yeah, do you have anything more on that topic at least?
Yeah, well, it just seems the episode was almost positing this, well, it's positing firstly this, it's initially showing that, Bender's, change to... Bender becoming religious is treated with kind of shock and almost a slight derision initially by the crew, except for Leela, where Leela's kind of wholly positive toward it initially, and because I guess it's closer to Leela's character, and then the rest of them are kind of more cynical and down and unempathetic, and so they kind of see it as oh no, Bender's become kind of a loser square, and but over time, even Leela's forced to admit, and it's a fact of you can be very encouraging of a friend, for example, if they convert to a new religion or if they make a new lifestyle choice. Initially, you're yeah, fantastic, good on you. But then they kind of become holier than thou, and that's one thing, it's okay, whatever, they might get over that. But then sometimes they start affecting other people's enjoyment at an event. Benders, no one else is going to drink wine at this dinner.
Yeah, no one drinks wine. They have to listen to the binary,
1000, yeah.
Yeah, over and over again. And for some reason it's always stuck with me. Maybe because I'm a psychedelic trip. Someone else did this to one of my friends, which Bender does the exact same thing. And I remember at that time I was like, what is that? And Bender hugs Fry and he's like, Fry, you're my friend. Which is like, it's an emotional touch, which is nice to share with people. But it's the way he like takes over Fry, and it turns Fry off, and it creeps him out. To the degree he doesn't even want to see Bender anymore. And so I just find it interesting that it's like a genuine show of like affection or friendship can actually have the opposite effect.
It's kind of a tragic incident where it reminds me of like someone going sober, like someone stopping drinking, and then they were like might like sit down with like a close friend of theirs, maybe someone they were drinking with over the years, maybe not even. It's kind of irrelevant to this point, I guess. And they're like and they start kind of going, you're my friend, you've always been with me, and you're going to help me through this problem together. And they start hugging, and it's like, you're my emotional, and you're basically telling someone that you're not even in a romantic relationship with, and even doing it in that context can be troubling. You're my emotional crutch, and like I'm emotionally dependent on you to be happy. You're my light, and you can be, the other person can be like, it's a bit much. It's like, okay, this isn't how human relationships, even couples, kind of work. This is kind of odd.
Yeah, that's a key part of a book I've been reading recently called Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace, where alcoholism specifically, he's in an AA meeting, and I think he calls them crocodiles, which are these AA people who've been going there for 50 years, and they embody the lifestyle essentially, and they're just full of these like platitudes, endless platitudes, emotional. What would you call it? Like sort of codependency between a whole group. It's a really fascinating bit. If anybody's read that book, I'd love to hear your take on it. I'm still only 3/4 through, and it's a long book, but
I've never even tried to read Foster Wallace personally.
It's
kind of it's kind of inherently depressing.
Oh, it's a hard read.
Just given the fate, right? Just knowing what happened. It's like listening to Nirvana or Joy Division and knowing the end of the story.
That's a good comparison, actually. Yeah.
You're just like, that's kind of a bummer.
But
great
music,
it's also, but still. It's great literature. Still.
It's not even literature. That's the thing. It's more like one's own internal monologue. It forces you to sort of, address these things that your mind generally shuts off. Similar to a psychedelic experience.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. But yeah, anyway, sorry for that quick tangent. But
fine.
Check out the book. So there's definitely a bit of that in this episode. Yeah, there's a lot to speak about in this episode, I guess, thematically.
Yeah. I feel like, how sometimes people will dissect a Simpsons episode about religion. You mentioned Homer the Heretic earlier, but also Homer and Lisa versus the Eighth Commandment. Or, it's another one that often gets... Bart sells his soul. That's the other one that gets brought up. That's the one that gets brought up the most these days in regards to religion. I like Lisa the Greek, too.
That's less religion, but it's still the same thing. Really.
About morality?
Morality and, family morality and...
Yeah, that's a really, really strong episode, yeah.
But yeah, please continue.
I was going to say, I think Hell is Other Robots is as strong, if not stronger, than some of these episodes. I mean, Homer the Heretic is particularly good. Like, season 4 Simpsons, like, pretty fucking good.
Typically, though, like, Bart Sells His Soul, Homer the Heretic, that is very funny, Homer the Heretic, but they're typically more dramatic. They play out more like television dramas with a heavy script and less light moments, whereas this episode is just funny as well at the same time as
very true.
It's hilarious. You can watch it as a 6-year-old kid and not really have any comprehension of these themes, and it's still one of the best episodes.
I actually did due to the Catholic upbringing. I kind of was like totally like, oh my god, because I got that vibe from The Simpsons, and like from being, because people the teachers at school, they weren't exactly saying like, what I want to do when I get home from school. I want to play video games, watch television, run around in the backyard, and do all this stuff. And it's religious people, they want you to do boring things. But, if I play too much violent video games, I might go to hell. And so basically they're telling me, to quote Morgan Bazin, that's really indulgent of me, it's better to be boring than bad, right, sir? Yeah, I guess. That's not your young people's takeaway from Christianity still, is it? Yeah, pretty much.
Sure.
Anyway, the point is, it's like, it did seem that way even as a primary school kid. Like, shit, there's a choice to be boring or bad. And Futurama's kind of playfully, in Hell is Other Robots, playfully dealing with that via the character of Bender. Because you can have a character kind of throw their life away with drinking, smoking, gambling, and strippers, and it not be kind of as horrible black comedy because it's the robot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bender's a phenomenal vessel to explore human ills because there aren't consequences in the same way. Because to him, he literally is just a function. He's just a program. He's that kind of reptilian drive just going all in. without any sort of reason or emotion. And so I think Bender's a phenomenal vessel to explore the human condition, interestingly enough, as well as animation in general, because he can move around in ways that, like, are both physically, both, with his extendable appendages, but also Bender will tilt himself around a bit in an expressionistic way that a human character, that would be too over the top, it would be too Disney. But Bender can do that, and it's a robot, and he can kind of get away with it.
Yeah, the old stretch.
Squash and stretch. You squash and stretch Bender in a way that you can't with the other Futurama characters or Simpsons kind of characters. And also Bender's eyes are very expressive, and his quote eyebrows unquote kind of are very very personal. They're very full of character and life.
Bender is the Spock's eyebrows of Futurama.
Yes. Bender is a gift to animators, and I think he's one of the greatest creations in the history of cartoons, obviously.
And this episode
both writing and as a visual formula for animators and artists to work with.
And this episode is his moment to shine. He has a few other great episodes, but this has to be top tier. Easily.
I'd say the Godfellas, if one for Godfellas, and that's kind of too easy. Or the Fairer to Remember, those really good season 3 ones. Yeah. Those two there.
See, Godfellas is a bit more like a Bart Sells His Soul or Homer and Heretic in tone, actually. Whereas this episode's more like a season 1 Futurama episode.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, Hellas of Robot, just kind of horrifying. And obviously we mentioned Homer a lot. We may as well mention Dan Castellaneta's scene-stealing performance as the Robot Devil. This is one of the greatest voices in the history of animation. It's iconic. Every now and again, I'll think of an over-the-top villain, and I'll give it a voice in my head, and it's the Robot Devil's voice. Because it's ingrained in my brain. Because just having the devil be a character in the first place, and I wasn't watching South Park at this age, just to be clear. I know some of you are saying, well, what about South Park? I didn't see South Park when I was in year 4 of Catholic pop ringing. I don't know about you, but your story.
SBS at 9:30.
Your story. I was the eldest. I didn't have older brothers corrupting me.
Oh, that does help. Yeah, you're like 9 years old, and you watch a show that's like 15 years old, like Ren and Stimpy.
Oh,
no, 9-year-old in 2006 should be.
The 90s was a different story. I didn't see that show till I was an adolescent. Even as an adolescent, I was like, "What in the fuck?" Who had seen pornography? I was like, "What in the fuck is this?" When I'm watching Ren and Stimpy.
It's more intense than pornography. I agree with you. Yeah, easily. I mean, I'd sooner show a primary school kid some. No, let's not go there.
Let's not even go there.
But yeah, Ren and Stimpy.
Bella Anderson is one thing.
That's yeah, it's crazy. But it's got nothing on this episode still. This episode, I guess it's not as edgy as Futurama. As Ren and Stimpy. But like you mentioned, it is probably one of the edgier Futurama episodes earlier on as well. Because it's obviously got the infamous Bender doing drugs thing.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's Bender's drug trip.
Bender and the Eel is our favourite image in the history of science fiction
television. My Facebook banner forever, and I'm never changing it because I'm never using Facebook again. But
mine was Grace Under Pressure from Rush. So was this one. So was Acknowledging Our Discontent, actually.
Nice.
Until it was Cybermen recently.
But yeah,
you people
Bender
know
and
that.
the Electric Eel is like a timeless image. It conveys the experience pretty well too. Yeah.
Just in case if in case you wanted to know but didn't actually want to take a pill or a tab or a fungi, that's more or less what it's like at its best. At its worst, it's I don't know. There's some parts
Bender
of
crouching down, biting his nails, and then guiding the ship into the electric storm.
Oh, is that too? I was gonna say some parts of. I was gonna say like
It's a balanced episode.
I don't know, maybe Brackage's Dog Star Man, if that's right. I don't know, maybe you're doing a good trip. I'm not sure. It's just not as vibrant and surrealistic pillow as you might hope. Anyway, Hellas of a Robots. Again, I would nominate this as one of my 5 favorite episodes of Futurama, and certainly my favorite in the first season. I think the amount that's compact in this 20 minutes is kind of ridiculous. I think it was a script that they slaved over. I think they were very careful as to make sure that they were doing religion and also the criticisms of religion, its justice. I think the Robot Devil segment is phenomenal. It's the best song that Futurama ever had, in my opinion. Is there a better song in Futurama?
Nah, no way. Even in The Simpsons, not a better song.
Simpsons have some okay songs.
Yeah.
Cookie Month's not one of them. I hate that crap. But
there's a few crummy songs in The Simpsons.
Yeah.
But yeah, this like weird jazzy track is amazing, and then Leela and Fry coming in and Fry like making a crack in song about having blisters on his ass.
Yeah.
I don't know why, that always cracked me up.
Yeah. Hey, Bender gonna make some noise, get your hard drive scratched by the Beastie Boys. I'd never heard of the Beastie Boys prior to this episode.
Yeah. I love how dated that reference is as well.
This is as much as this episode. I have to hate to say
So,
that this episode is as much as I like the Beastie Boys. That music is just like an immediate like radio turn off for me. It's like change the channel,
now, don't, yeah.
change the station. I like it now how they say the text of what artist is playing, so I can just like change it. It's like I'm in someone else's car.
No, I do like the weird remix they do at the end for the theme song.
Oh, that's great.
So that should have just been the ending credits song for the rest of Futurama.
Yeah.
But yeah, one quick, I guess, little footnote about the Beastie Boys appearance I kind of found funny is that Fry's like, oh, I had all 5 of your albums, and they're like, oh, that was 1,000 years ago. Now we have 7. Which is accurate, because before they disbanded and passed away, they ended up putting out 2 more albums. And the Beastie Boys, in fact, have 7 albums.
I forgot. Yeah, one of them passed away not long ago, right?
Oh, one died in like 2008 or 9.
Okay, but see, that's how out of the loop I am.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I was definitely
Way
a
back in the
fan
day. I don't know how it
personally, if
happened.
you couldn't tell.
Yeah. They're like a staple of pop culture long past. of the 90s, of times gone.
Yeah.
Like, I guess they're popular in the 80s too, but that's the other thing. They were like 4 different bands over the course of their lives. They started out as like a New York hardcore punk band.
Sure, yeah.
And then did that like Run DMC rap rock thing.
Yeah.
And then did like a Public Enemy style sample Delia album. And then I think the next one after that's called like Check Your Head, which is the Sabotage like rock album. Really.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember they used Sabotage in Star Trek 09 and Into Darkness and Beyond, the next one.
Yeah,
that's
that
horrendous.
was weird. They turned that into the impromptu Star Trek theme song.
You know, go from do.
Yeah, go on to monologues. Although this episode's version of Sabotage is great.
Oh, the kind of like
acapella.
Yeah, that's classic.
The barbershop quartet.
I was thinking of what to call that. It's like not doo-wop. Like, what would you call that?
Yeah,
barbershop. That's
or
it.
harmony band or something like that. Vocal band, I think it's called. Yeah, if anyone hasn't seen this episode so far, I mean, unless you really hate the Beastie Boys, check it out.
Yeah, and even I don't like the Beastie Boys, and I think this is one of the 5 best episodes of Futurama. I think it will be a while before we find an episode that impresses me more than this one, to be honest. I think if I may give an impromptu top 5 right now, and the reason I don't think it'll spoil too much, because I think this might change as we do this top 5.
Yeah, definitely, because we're watching every episode.
Yeah, and this is off the top of my head, my top 5 will be... Because I would always put Hell is Other Robots in an impromptu top 5, and I'm still confident, relatively... I mean, there's the rest of the episodes I need to watch, to put in a top 5. So in no particular order, just to be clear, because we know Hell is Other Robots, that might be 4th, let's say, and the other ones might be like Godfellas, God, I don't know.
The obsolete one, right?
Yeah, top 5, obviously, you know how much I love Absolutely Fabulous. We'll get to that.
That's a good episode.
We'll like an hour-long episode on that. That ridiculously good episode. Yeah, Hell's Other Robots, like Godfellas. I love Parasites Lost a lot. And I love like The Sting is brilliant. Like that's an impromptu top 5 right there. I like those trippy later episodes.
The Sting always sort of skips my mind for some reason. Maybe I'm just not as well watched in those last couple
It's actually not as funny in episodes.
It isn't. It's very dramatic.
It's horrifying. And I'd never seen... When I first saw that episode, I'd never seen 2001. So that Stargate homage in there was like nuts to me. I thought that was just a thing they made up. And I was like, oh my god, these guys are like terrifying. But they're homaging something even scarier and more brilliant, which I saw a couple of years later.
And Leela's state of mind, I didn't obviously think this at the time, but in retrospect, it's very like it reminds me of like a Philip K. Dick novel.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Save it for me. Save it for season 4.
We'll save it for later, yeah. We'll talk about PKD later.
Yeah. That'd be fun. PKD month. April or something.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, I have to write about Blade Runner and A Scan the Darkly and Total Recall and Minority Report in the same month. H.P. Lovecraft is one thing, but Philip K. Dick, holy hell. Guy like shot his wife.
Yeah, that's away.
And like unlike William Burroughs, it wasn't like a manslaughter. Like he was. Oh no, he didn't shoot. He like put her in a car and tried to push her off the cliff, and then they later said that she did it.
Yeah. It's some convoluted.
Back in the day, you could say your wife.
Oh, back in the day, you could do too much shit.
Yeah, especially if you were married to some woman. Like you could like throw the woman off a cliff, and you could say like she jumped.
Don't look into the history of asylums, people. Don't do it.
Or Philip K. Dick, apparently.
Yeah, interesting history.
Let's just focus on the books,
Don't
people.
you speak, guys.
No.
You'll end up like pushing your missus off a bridge or something. That's a nice note to end. Hell is other robots, I reckon.
But it may as well.
Yeah.
But that episode ends with Bender going, "Do you think you guys can survive a 600-foot fall?"
It's relevant and it's hilarious.
Good old Bender.